Okay, I think hopefully we are live. Perfect, we are live. Excellent. Okay, well, welcome everyone. Shri here. Hope you guys are having a lovely week. I've been meaning to do one of these interviews for a while, but it's just been a pretty hectic year, to be perfectly honest. So trying to find some time to do them has been a little bit challenging, but I, got in touch with Cecile a few weeks ago or so, and just to see how she's been going. So I started working with Cecile last May, I think it was, if I'm not mistaken, end of May. And she was in a bit of a difficult space in her marriage. She was going through a separation at the time as well, or was separated with her husband. And I think from memory as well, you were in the hospital at the time when we first spoke. So, it was all sort of coming down on you at the time. So, and one of the things I've sort of observed over the last 18 months or so, you've just massively shifted in so many ways, and just your whole energy and everything that you're giving off at the moment is, it's really beautiful to see. And I guess, just a real reflection of the fact that when you actually take the time and the energy to invest in your own growth, that, amazing things really can happen. So I thought it'd be really, really cool to, do an interview after a long time, but it'd be great to do this interview just to kind of hear a little bit more about your story and some of the challenges that you went through. And then what, is always a good thing is as we go through this, it just means that other people can really learn from your story and, really understand what's actually possible on this journey. Because I think when we're going through challenges in our marriage or in any area of our life, it can be really difficult to have hope, to live in faith, to trust, and also know that we're actually worthy of putting some time and energy into ourselves as well, because it's quite easy to get defeated and to feel like that there's no, possibility of experiencing any kind of growth. So welcome, Cecile. It's lovely to have you here.
Thank you.
And
it's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, it's awesome. So look, maybe what you could do to start with is if you can just tell us a little bit about, where were you before, we started working together? What sort of challenges were you going through in your marriage? And then we can just kind of flow from there and have a bit of a chat.
Sure. So I would say, 2019 is when I reached out to you. So I think 2 or 3 years before that, to be honest, things were not going so well. Mm-hmm. And it's hard, right? When you're in a relationship, it's kind of, things are not great, but you don't know how bad it is until you hit rock bottom. And a lot of things happened in our marriage where we had a miscarriage, our house got on fire. There was a bunch of things where we were not communicating anymore. And I think we kind of grew apart from each other. We didn't realize that we were not connecting anymore. And it's really, I think in 2019 when I realized that, I remember now I'm like going back into these feelings where he was telling me this relationship is toxic, because it was hard to hear, but we were at a point where we could not make each other happy anymore. We were so mad at each other. We were into this power strength, like these power struggles where it's attack defense all the time for like the most ridiculous things. And we're just trying to prove our point. We were not listening to each other anymore. We were at the point where it's almost we fell apart and we didn't know how to get back together. We knew we cared about each other. Something was broken and we didn't know how to repair it and how to move forward. The way I see it is we were facing this wall and I didn't know where to go. I felt we were at a dead end and there was nothing else we could do.
Yeah, and did you find it was, like, I know you talked about those major life events. Did you kind of find it was just sort of one moment, or did you find it just was kind of, it's almost like the frog boiling to death, right? Rather than just jumping in and jumping out. So it's, did you find it was lots of those things, little things, and then you had these big events in your life, and then that ended up just making it even worse for everything? Or did you find that it all just changed because of those two big events in your life?
I think it's little things. It just like every stone, everything on the way is what made it blow up. We just didn't realize how bad it was, and I think now because I've been able to reflect and to do all this inner work, I can see that we both were not great at communicating, and it's always a work in progress. I'm not saying we're perfect now, but
Sure.
it's just coming because I've been able to reflect on my childhood and all the trauma that I've been through. I've been able to see that I was not communicating. I was going into silent or into, when I say violence, it's more like fighting mode, survival mode.
Sure.
And it's difficult in a relationship to deal with that for a long time. And when you go through big challenges in your life, if you don't know how to communicate and if you just like go silent or fight and no in between, like if you don't know how to communicate in a healthy way, challenges like that in your life just make it so that you don't you just face the wall, and at some point it just breaks. It's just you don't see how to overcome this thing.
Absolutely, because I know you'd spoken a lot about some of the challenges that you had as a child, and just in your family environment. How much did you feel like that shaped your ability to show up in your marriage in a positive way?
So what you're saying is how much my childhood shaped me in
Yeah,
my marriage?
I guess, what I notice is, so for example, if we're in a situation where, we've been abandoned as a child, for example, then that can often bring up abandonment issues in a marriage, and so, or a
Right.
relationship. And so let's say a partner ends up, going out with their friends for a bit and takes a little bit longer, it can suddenly trigger a whole heap of wounds inside of them, and then they start getting defensive and so on. Excuse
Right.
me. So I'm just wondering, like, how much of all of that sort of impacted your life in your marriage as well, and being able to show up as the best partner that you possibly could be.
Oh, it had a lot of impact, and actually this was a major thing. So when I was a child, and I don't mind speaking about this here, when I was 6 years old, my mom tried to commit suicide, and it was really hard for me because I've seen all of it, and
Sure.
and so my dad was not really part of the picture. He was already with another woman and having another child, and me as a person, I felt not wanted. I felt like unloved and neglected, I guess. And so I didn't realize that these events in my childhood, I've been carrying all of these emotions, all these feelings my entire life. And it had a lot of impact in my relationship because when my husband would go out and would stay with friends, if he was staying longer or having drinks, I just felt like I was not a priority. I was not wanted or loved. And for some reason, I didn't realize at the time. And so I was really kind of pushing him away without noticing it, without realizing it. And
Sure.
I remember him saying, like, the more you push me away, the more I want to go out and drink with my friends. So it was like a vicious circle that kept
Absolutely.
going on and on. And so I remember not being able to quite put the finger on it and realize, like, what the heck? Like, why is it my fault that you're going out and having drinks? And, like, it was just, like,
Yeah.
it was messy. And so it's only after all this inner work and realizing that this is coming from me, this is me feeling unworthy, unloved, and this is coming from me. So the fact that my husband is the best teacher and is able to trigger me in this way and teach me that I need to focus on me and all the things here that are within me, I need to love myself first. I need to feel worthy. And now I'm in the point where last night he went out with some friends and I was like, yes, some me time. I'm going to watch movie that I enjoy. I'm going to order some food that only me enjoy. It's just amazing to see how different I approach the situation.
Yeah, absolutely. And that doesn't just happen, like I think people often think, oh, we can just shift our mindset or we can just cognitively change our thoughts. And it's like, I know for me in my life, it's when people used to say that, oh, just, think more positive. I'd try, but it just didn't do anything for me at all. And
Right.
It's a process and it takes time and it requires you to do some deep kind of inner work and some inner healing. Did you kind of have any reservations or were there any fears that were front of mind for you when you were about to embark on this particular journey? Because, one thing I've noticed in all of the years I've been doing this work, a lot of people will be going through a lot of pain. A lot of people go through a lot. And but it's quite incredible. It's only a very small percentage of people who are kind of really prepared and ready to make those changes at this particular moment in time. And so I guess, I'm curious about where were you at in terms of, you talk about that rock bottom and feeling like, look, I've got to do something about this. And had there been moments beforehand where you felt like, oh, I needed to do something, but other things got in the way, or there were other things that seemed to be more of a priority at the time?
Yeah, there was a lot of different. So I've tried to do a lot of work on my own. I read a lot of books, and I've done a lot of inner work myself, but not to the point where I could really make a change.
Sure.
And I think it's the human nature to not want to change and to not want to face what's not working. And it's only March 2019 is when my husband said, it's not working anymore. And I'm going to go live with my friend. He was speaking about divorce. I remember feeling like empty and confused and lost. And I didn't know at the time if it was worth fighting or if it was just like, okay, we should be done. Like we're not happy. Life is supposed to life is short and life is supposed to be happy. Like, is it better to separate or is it better to try to make it work? And we had been trying to make it work, but he didn't want to go see a couple therapist and me alone reading books and it was just not working. And I remember at this point in May 2019 is when I was in hospital. I had a bad, like a viral infection and so I was alone in hospital, and I remember like just scrolling on Facebook, and I came across one of your posts. I don't remember exactly what it was, but it just resonated with me, and it was probably like, oh, on the verge of a divorce and something to do with that. And I was like, it really resonated with me, and I felt drawn to you, and I was like, he's a guy, so he might be able to somehow might be able to help me understand my husband, because I clearly don't know anything about about masculine energy and all of these things. And I remember having a call with you for an hour while in my hospital bed, and I just felt like it was the right thing to do. I was at a point in life where I was hurt physically, emotionally, and it was just I guess. Yeah, it was the right thing to do. And I just wanted, I knew at this point that whether my marriage was going to work or not, I needed to make myself happy and I needed to do something. And I figured I had nothing to lose. I'm just going to go for it and see where it takes me.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, it's such an important step to take in terms of just investing in your own growth and putting the time and energy into it, because it's kind of like what they say on the airlines, right? Like, put your own mask on first before you put someone else's mask on. And if we don't do the inner work on ourselves, then, we're not... Life's always a reflection of what's going on inside. So if we're not doing the deep work inside, then, the external's not going to be in the way that we want it to be. And, sometimes it doesn't work out exactly as planned or exactly in how our mind perceives it's going to be. but it happens in often mysterious ways and in ways that serve us for our highest good. So, looking at your circumstances now, do you look at it and you think that this all kind of happened for a particular reason? And I don't necessarily even mean just working with me, but just in terms of the overall situation and, what did it teach you, kind of going through this process, and then also just the learnings that you got through your husband?
Yeah, it's my mentality that everything happens for a reason.
Sure.
And I say that for everything. Like, I lost a child, and there was a lot of different things that now I feel everything happens for a reason. And the fact that I was facing a wall and I was on the verge of a divorce, it's what really awakened me. And I've done a lot of inner work, so it helped my relationship, but also now I'm at the point where I'm also doing a lot of reflection in terms of what I want to do in my life, in terms of work, in terms of a living, what's my purpose in life. And I think I got there because I've done all this inner work. Because of things not going well with my husband, it pushed me to really think about what makes me happy. Like, how do I feel? Like, what makes me feel fulfilled and happy? And I remember the first, I think it was our first call, where you were like, okay, your homework is going to be list 5 things that you like about yourself, or something like that. And I was struggling. I was like, what is it that I like, and what do I like about myself? I was really struggling. And doing that every day, it became something much easier. And now I'm able to know what is it that I enjoy doing, like something that brings me joy. And it's crazy. It seems simple, but it's something we don't really think about.
And it doesn't happen. It doesn't happen until you really commit to yourself. Like, you could read this stuff on the internet somewhere, right? And do these exercises. Most people won't do it. And it's not a reflection of them, but it's because they haven't fundamentally committed to themselves. And I was exactly the same. Like, for years I would just try and fumble my way through, sort of hoping that things would change and stuff, but I wasn't truly committed to it. And it just requires us to get to that space where we just make that decision. It's decisions fundamentally shape our destiny. And I think if we get to that place where we say, all right, this is what I need to do, or, my marriage is the number one most important thing in my life, I need to work on it. Or I'm the number one most important thing in my life, I need to work on me, and so on. You take that approach, miracles can happen, magic can happen. And I think you're a perfect case in point in terms of the shifts and the transformations that you've made, throughout this point. Did you, were you kind of skeptical as you were, potentially embarking on this journey? Was there any part of you that was like, oh, geez, who's this bloke from New Zealand, like...
So, yeah, I remember, especially like being in the hospital, I was like, what am I doing? So it's like your head messing with your heart.
Sure.
And I was at the point, all my life, I've been way too much in my head, and where I was like, okay, that's you have to invest in yourself. And so it's like your head kind of like fighting your heart. And I remember like being skeptical in terms of, is it serious? Like, is it a real guy in New Zealand, or is it a spam? And I'm pleased to say it's not a spam.
Yeah, that's right.
I met you in person, so
exactly.
I know you're not a spam. But it is always, I think it's like human nature of like the fear.
Of course.
It's like the fear versus the opportunity. It's, are you letting the fear hold you back, or are you jumping into this opportunity to grow? And this is really when you're ready to invest in yourself, when you're ready to make the change and step up.
Absolutely. No, I couldn't have said it better. I think that's the thing. It's just about making sure that at that moment where you feel like you're ready, that you jump in and you just do things, because that's how we create real transformation. So tell me, how is the communication between the two of you when things were at its most difficult, and how are things for you guys now?
So before, it was, like I said earlier, it was just always, we are hot-headed. We're both like stubborn, and we have to prove our point. And I think also one thing that I learned with you is that I was way too much in my masculine energy. I was really into action, and this is because now I've been able to understand my childhood and where does this come from. But because of my mother's tentative of suicide, I was the parent. As a 6 years old, I was trying to be there for her and really take the responsibility for her. I was responsible for her feeling and her being okay. And so I was always into this survival mode, into action, into doing, and I think I brought this into my marriage. And somehow you have too much masculine energy. So my husband is really masculine, and it was just like both really hot-headed and just at some point, it's with you, I realized, why am I doing this? Like, it served me before, but it doesn't serve me now. Why am I doing this now? And stepping more into my feminine energy and more into my intuition and flowing. And I remember you saying, like, are you just I remember the feminine energy wearing dress and being more flowy. And I was like, oh man, I don't do this thing. Like, I completely... And so stepping into this, now it's much better, and I'm able to speak with my husband in a much healthier way. And it's not just the feminine energy, it's also understanding that when things are not going well, it's also because he's triggered, and I used to have resentment and anger, being annoyed by the things he would do. And now it's more like, oh, he has needs, and also I'm able to see it with love and compassion. And I never thought I would be able to say that. But because of all the work I've been doing, now I'm able to see that he's also being triggered by something. It's not because he's trying to fight against me. It's because something is going on inside of him that is putting him in this position. So it's much healthier, and it doesn't mean we don't have disagreements, like we had one last night. But it's more understanding, like, oh, there's something that is coming up to heal, and it's not I'm not feeling so much resistance anymore. Before I would be like, ugh, and then like, go away, and I would feel so much resistance. I would feel it in my shoulders, and I would feel like so tense. And now it's more like, oh, something is coming up for healing.
Exactly.
What's there to teach me?
Exactly. And I was just going to make that very point. It's just a lot of these things come up. See, I always believe that our partners are our greatest teachers in life. And so the things that trigger us in them are the very things that we need to work through in ourselves. And I think it's also important to see the innocence in other people as well. You know, I'm a big believer that every human being behaves with a positive intent. And that's even with extreme examples of people committing, you know, horrendous behaviors and so forth, and horrendous acts. In their minds, they believe that, oh, okay, if I do this, then I'm going to end up in the next life. Or if I'm going to do this, then that's going to, you know, help America, or whatever it is. There's always a positive intent for someone, if not for themselves. And so I think a lot of the time people in relationships will react defensively because that's their way of, you know, getting into, you know, survival mode or protecting themselves. And, you know, at the end of the day, we all have a fundamental fear of not being good enough. And so if someone's triggering us in that area, what are we going to do? We're either going to shut down or we're going to fight back. And that's where a lot of our defense mechanisms sort of kick in these situations. Hey, Laura, good to have you here. And so I think when it comes to, you know, your circumstance, I think it's fantastic that you're seeing it in this way now. And I just, it's really, really lovely to see the progress. How's your husband noticed some of the changes? Has he commented much on
it? He did, yeah. I think I've been able to do, so we've been separated for about a year. And during this year, we didn't really stop. We continued to see each other, but we had some we continue to see each other, but it was a process. Like you said,
Sure.
it takes time to work on yourself. And I've been able to work on myself. I don't think he did exactly the same.
Yep.
And I remember us having a conversation where he told me, like, I can see how much, like, he could see the work I've been doing, but he was not in this position yet. He didn't feel like, I guess he was holding on into the past and what happened and things like that. But he definitely saw a change in me. And what I see is that when you change the way you react, the other person is reflecting back to you.
That's
and
right.
Even though he didn't do as much work on his own, and he didn't want to see a couple therapists, and he would not be the one reaching out to somebody in New Zealand for for some coaching, but the way that I react now with him is also changing his way of reacting back to me. So
Perfect.
It is a big change.
Yeah, no, that's it's so beautiful to see, you know, because I'm a big believer in that. When you know, I think people often get frustrated because why do I always have to be the one to change? Why can't he change? This is pissing me off. And there's always that natural resistance. Problem is, though, is if you take that approach, you'll end up just transferring those same issues into another area of your life because they often come from within. And I'm not saying that there aren't some bad guys out there, because there absolutely is. You know, you get your narcissists and your serial cheaters, but sometimes the learning is in that situation is how can we learn to let go? How can we learn to walk away? How can we have the courage because we've been, you know, not setting boundaries for a long time or whatever. So there's always that internal healing work that needs to be done, you know, within ourselves. And so from my perspective, that's a beautiful thing. When it comes to the daily approach, because, you know, you can go through a process and you can create some shifts, but it's one thing to create some shifts for the short term, but it's another thing to actually sustain it over a long period of time. So I'm just curious, like, how you've been kind of approaching things now in terms of ensuring that this is not just a quick fix, but something that's actually going to stand the test of time for you.
I would say I've been pretty bad recently at doing journaling every day.
Sure.
But whenever I feel triggered, for me, it's all about nature. I feel connected when I go into nature.
Yeah.
So I would go for a walk just to change my mind and just like nature is something that brings me joy and brings me another perspective. And also, if I'm feeling a little bit low, now that I know what makes me happy, I'm going to go take a bath, or I'm going to listen to Abraham Hicks, or I'm going to listen to a meditation.
Yep.
I'm just going to take some time for myself to lay down, put some music, put my headphones, and just... it's amazing. Last time, I think there was something... I forgot exactly what happened with my husband, but... I just said I need some time, and I went into the hammock and I spent 30 minutes. I listened to a meditation, and then I was like, okay. And I just went to him, gave him a kiss, and then I think I told him, I love you, and let's move on. Before it would have been hard. I would have been holding a grudge for a long time. Now I'm like, there's no right or wrong, and it's the way you feel, it's the way I feel. How can we make it? A big thing for me is how can we be a we? Before I was all about me against you, you against me. Now it's like, okay, how can we make it work? Like, what can we do to find a solution? And this has been a huge difference.
And I think the big thing as well is that, you know, people might sit there and go, oh yeah, okay, cool, I just need to go into a hammock and just meditate for half an hour. But the thing is that it actually takes a lot of work to get to a point where you're even ready to jump into a hammock and do meditation for 30 minutes. Because it's actually quite challenging to have that part of you go, right, this is what I need to do. Because in that moment, we get into such a survival state. It's like, you know, you get on the defensive and you just want to let loose on your partner, and it's, you know, it can really impact. Or we dive deep into our own, you know, challenges and our own insecurities, and we beat ourselves up and so forth. So, you know, I think it's...
I've been there. When you say that, it makes me smile, because I remember, like, I remember him saying like, walk away, because he could tell like we were triggering each other. This was
Yes.
like last year, and I would not walk away because I was like, I wanted my point across. I would not walk away. I was just, and now it's like, what is it teaching me? Or like the first question would be like, why am I feeling this way? And then I'm like, okay, go for a walk and go figure out what's going on inside of you. Like, let him be, let him do his thing.
And I think it's really cool because I think you've discovered your own way. You know, it's not just some cookie cutter thing and says, all right, you have to do this, this, and this. It's like, no, this is my way. Just like I have my own way, and you know, other clients will have their own ways, and it's about figuring out your own way and kind of approaching it in an authentic way and in a real way. So I think that's beautiful to to see. So Laura had a quick question here and just saying, was there any infidelity in your marriage? If you don't want to answer, I totally understand.
So, not that I'm aware.
Yeah.
There was none.
Yeah.
Last year when we were separated, we both said that maybe it was an opportunity for us to go somewhere else, because we were at the point where we didn't even know if we would be attracted to other people.
Sure.
But to answer the question, there was no infidelity.
Yeah.
We've been together 10 years, and at least not that I'm aware.
Yeah, sure. I also think it's also
and
a
it's one
reflection.
of the things where I'm sorry.
No, you go.
It's one of the things that I remember last year being at a point where I was like, I was so focused on my husband, and I was like, is he a good man? Like, should I stay with him? I'm at this point in my life where we're both not happy, and life is short. Maybe we're just not meant to be together. And I remember speaking with you, Shri, and thinking, what are my values? Who am I? Like, what makes me happy? And really, instead of focusing on him and what he did and all the actions that he did and the things that would piss me off, really think about, because I remember I was so focused on that, so focused on the question, should I leave him or should I not leave him? And I think you had a completely different approach where you were like, okay, we need to focus on you and what are the things that you like, you like to do. And this was it shifted the way I was approaching the issue.
Absolutely. And I think once
it comes after, like it comes along the way, you understand, okay, what are my values? What are his values? Are we aligned? And then we can make a decision whether we want to continue or not.
That's right. And I think, a lot of people are under, especially for women, they get into a place where they're under a lot of pressure to get into a relationship, to get married, to have kids. There's a huge pressure that I find, and it's really, really unfortunate that there is so much pressure for, I think, a lot of women, in all honesty. So I think it's about actually sometimes taking a step back and going, what is it that I truly want? What do I truly want in a man? Because, there's, I think, and I mean this with the greatest respect to a lot of people out there, but I think a lot of people do settle for some pretty low standards in their marriage. And it's sad for me to say that, but I do see it a lot. I see a lot of people settle some really, really low standards, and some men who treat them like absolute garbage. And it's kind of embarrassing sometimes as a man to know that there are some men out there who operate like this, who treat their partners like shit. I was even talking to someone today whose husband was basically on his phone in the birth room whilst his wife was giving birth. I can't comprehend that, as another guy. So I think it's sometimes about really looking at ourselves and kind of going, look, what is it? What are my standards? What are my values? And what do I truly want in a man? Because if I can recognize that, and I know that, and that works both ways, for both partners, then that will ultimately determine whether it is that you want to put the time and the energy into that person or not. I know even for me and Divya, we've had plenty of disagreements and, probably not arguments as such, because we don't really operate like that, but, heavy moments. And I think one thing that I always knew right from the very beginning was that our core values were aligned. That's it. So I never doubted in my mind ever whether she was the right one for me. And I guess that was my sort of question you did elaborate on in any way, was that, how you got to a point where even amidst these challenges, you felt like, you know what, I still want to be with this man. What was it that kind of, twisted it, or not twisted it, flipped it for you anyway? Or what made you realize that this was the man that you wanted to be with still?
I think for me, and this is because of my past, I was doubting and I was worried about him not being the right person because my parents got divorced and it was pretty bad, like I mentioned. And so I was always worried about that in my relationship. And it's like you're putting yourself for failure. It's like you're everything. But I think what really helped me is to understand my core value, what is important to me, and understanding his core value, and the fact that he's loyal. For me, it was important that he's really into family. So I'm from France, and he always think about my mom is alone. He would be okay having her under a roof, which for me is a little bit difficult because I don't know, from Europe. He's Mexican, he's half Mexican, and in Mexico they accept their elders in their house, but it's just it's all these things, like the fact he's loyal, the fact he's into family and kids, and the fact that he would do pretty much anything to be there for me. I've had major surgeries in my life, and with no exception, even last year when we were separated, like I said, in hospital I was alone, but the next day I forgot how it happened, if he found out or if I sent him a text, but when he found out I was in hospital, even though things were tense, he ended up coming to be with me.
Yeah.
And I just feel like he's there. I don't need the money. I don't need, of course we need money. We need to be okay somehow in life. But what is important to me is the safety, is the idea of a family and being there for each other. So it's what
I'm sure you've had times when, you've maybe needed a little bit more from him and so forth. Over the last little period of time. How have you kind of approached that in terms of conversations and so forth? How do you go about it these days?
One thing that I realized is that we don't have the same love languages, and it used to like really upset me, and that was one of the reasons where I was like, should we stay together? Because my love language is physical touch.
Yes.
It's quality time and physical touch.
Yes.
And for him, it's not. So Before I felt not loved or not wanted because he would not hug me or give me a kiss like when I was expecting it. His way of showing love is to cook, to do things for me. It's more like
acts of service.
Action, right? Act of service. Yeah. And so understanding that really helped me also to understand all this time I thought he was not loving me. But it's because I was expecting love in a certain way when he was showing it to me in a completely different way. So when I was telling him, you don't love me or you don't show me you love me, it was really upsetting him because he was like, what the heck? I'm doing 100% and
that's right.
You're still telling me I don't love you?
Yeah.
So it really helped me to understand how different we are. And I guess now it's more in a fun way. If I want a kiss or if I want a hug, I just come to him and just hug him. It's not coming from him, but I know now that when he brings me a piece of the meal he's cooking or something for me to try it on, I know it's an act of love. And I appreciate it a lot more now that I'm able to see it.
Absolutely. And once again, it's like you can learn some of these theories, but you would have been at a place where you're ready to create a shift as far as your comprehension of that, of some of those theories, like you talk about love languages and so forth. Some people will just read it and go, oh yeah, I get that, but then so what? I want him to do this for me, and that's it. So I think getting out of the whole headspace of it's about me to it's we, and I'm actually going to put my time and energy into him, I think makes a huge shift, and it starts to open your heart and gets you more into your feminine as well, which I think is a beautiful thing.
One big thing was be able to receive, and
Exactly.
this was completely new to me.
Yeah.
The ability to receive love.
Yeah.
Because he was showing love this whole time. I was just not able to receive it.
Exactly. Yeah. 100%. No, it's so cool to see. And I'm curious, what advice would you give people who are kind of on that path where they're going through a lot of challenges in their marriages and in their life in general? What advice would you kind of give them in terms of, putting the time and the energy into themselves and so forth? Because, as I said, a lot of people do nothing. Like I say, it's not a criticism at people, but it's just they're at that place where they're not, that the fear of change is too scary for them. So therefore, I'll tolerate my circumstances as they are right now, as opposed to potentially embarking on a journey. And as someone who's kind of been on a journey towards personal development, spiritual growth, and all that good stuff, just curious what advice you'd give to people like that.
I would say to go all in, to not, and it might sound scary at first to jump in, to take the leap. But I think for me at least, focusing on my wounds and what's holding me back has been what helped me to heal. I feel that you cannot just stay on the surface and just expect things to get better. If you don't go all in and invest time and energy in yourself, you're gonna stay in this place forever. And it almost takes more energy to stay in this okay place of unhappiness than to really deep dive into your wounds and what's making you feel this way. Because you know that at the end of the tunnel, there's some light. And I think it's really what helped me. And it's because also of my personality, I don't mind about going deep. I need to understand what's holding me back in order to... It's like when you're pushing a ball underwater, at some point it has to come back on the surface. Yep. And I just feel like, how long are you going to hold this ball underwater? It's taking so much energy. At some point you just have to release it, uncover everything, and just... If you have somebody that can help you and guide you along the way, you know that at some point you're going to feel better. And
that's right.
I think what's important is to have faith and trust and find somebody that you can resonate with and can guide you, feel comfortable enough to do all this work and to know that it can only get better than where you're at right now.
That's exactly right. It really does. It does work. I think people just get to a place where they step into a lot of fear and, they've probably tried a couple of things, and it doesn't, hasn't really made the progress that they wanted. But, even with me, I mean, I've spent a huge amount of money on personal growth over the years. And, there were times where I did certain things and I thought, oh, that didn't quite get me the results that I wanted. But what I realized was each thing was a stepping stone for me to just continue my evolution as a person. And I think that's the key thing. So, with any sort of program, any kind of transformation, as long as you say, it feels right and it resonates, you're going to make the shifts and it's going to ultimately create transformation in the long run. And it might just take you from A to E, and then the next one, might end up taking you from F to, Z or whatever. And it's that kind of continuum, and it's about just each step of the way. It's something that guides you and helps you on that path. So, look, it's just beautiful to see the transformation in your journey, and it's just a real privilege to have been able to serve you on this path. There's nothing better than, seeing couples, reignite and create, true joy and happiness. And I think it's really important to recognize that in any relationship or marriage, there's always going to be challenges. Like, it's not all, happy, joyful times on, those pristine blue waters in Tahiti or something like that all the time that people post on Facebook. There's some challenging things, So, and I know even in our marriage, we've had tough times, and that's just the beauty of it, because it helps you to grow. And then in the long run, you have this rock solid foundation that allows you to, sort of stand the test of time. So I think it's beautiful to see that you guys are in this lovely place. Congratulations on all of the progress that you've made. And, I know a lot of people would have had some, will get a lot of benefits out of listening to your story, and as well as the people who've watched it so far as well. So no, it's beautiful to see. And just for anyone else who's watching, hope you've got, lots of value out of hearing Cecile's story. If you're wanting to see if, the Authentic Relationship System program is suitable for you, then what I'll do is I'll just leave my link below, and you can book in a time with me, just have a chat and see if this is something that fits right for you. The only thing I ask is, if you book in, please show up. Don't just disappear and not answer the phone. And just book in if you're really, really committed towards creating some shifts in your life, because, I think Cecile's a classic example of someone who's put some time and energy into her growth and has been able to yield some amazing results. So look forward to being of service to you all. Thank you so much for watching this interview as well. Thank you, Cecile, for your time. I really appreciate it. And,
You're welcome.
lots of love and light to you all. All right. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.